Welcome back to another episode of the Nord Search podcast, where we speak to leaders in the power trading industry. So delighted today to be joined by a true leader in the German power trading markets and beyond. So today I'm joined by Servet from Pure Energy, this co-founder and chairman of Pure Energy. So welcome, Servet. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure for sure. But yeah, for those who don't know Servet, we always start if you could give an introduction to yourself, and we could also career history. You've got a really interesting background, so it'd be great to run through that.
Sure. Thank you very much for that, Patrick. My name is Servet Akgun, and I'm one of the founders of Pure Energy. I mean, from the background perspective, I'm an economist. I've done my bachelor's back in 2006 in Istanbul, and then moved to Norway and Switzerland for my master's degrees, and then ended up with a Norwegian renewable company, Statkraft, which is actually one of the best in power trading. And I've worked with them for about nine and a half years in total. I started as a cross-border power trader. Back then, there were borders to trade in Europe, and that was all before market coupling and everything. That was also a great opportunity to understand the market design and how you really, in a way, to understand how price discovery is done and so on. So I had a chance to trade in, I would say, more than 15 countries back in the day. And after doing it for 4.5 years, the company dispatched me to Turkey, actually to Istanbul. Because we back then we acquired some hydro assets in Turkey, and we were setting up a trading and origination organization. So I was very fortunate to run that business for another 4 years. And after setting it up and seeing how the market changes also. Yeah. Together with two other founders of mine, we have actually decided to move and start our own business called Pure Energy. That was already happening in 2016. And it's also interesting maybe to note, end of March 2015 in Turkey, we had a complete blackout, which is very similar to what has happened in Spain recently. And right after that, the regulator came up with a lot of interesting market design changes. And one of them was making renewables balance responsible. And back then we thought, okay, maybe this is a great timing to start the virtual power plant business. Basically being the first virtual power plant operator trader in Turkey. That's when we have started. Yeah, basically then we started to, because I mean, we have also one of my other founders, he was also working for a German company, Ep31, Akgun. And the other founder was also in power business, power and gas backgrounds in Turkey. Chef, we said, well, this is a great opportunity because we also already knew how it is actually done in Germany. And we thought it's a good way of starting our journey. But of course, that market design change was itself not really enough to have that business booming. Although we're really happy. I mean, currently we are running 3,500 megawatts of pure renewables in our portfolio. By the way, name of the company, Pure, also comes from the renewable focus. I mean, this is our 9th year, and so far we did not trade anything rather than renewable in our portfolio, and that is actually one of our key really focus areas. Yeah, and now I think we're at the 9th year of the company, and actually in 2018-19 we have started the German operations actually.
Yeah.
And of course, that was just before COVID. It started a little slow, but in 2021, we have taken over quite a big portfolio to start balancing. And currently, again, in Germany, we are running or managing a portfolio of 3,200 megawatts of assets. Again, pure renewables, predominantly wind in Germany. And this is actually the very quick summary of what we are doing. And again, I mean, this is also the summary of the last 17, 18 years of my career.
Yeah, no, fascinating career. And I was going to ask you what was the trigger to go and do it by yourself, but you mentioned the blackout event, the changes there. So had you already thought at that point, did you have a desire to go and be an entrepreneur, be a founder?
That's an excellent question, actually. I think all our companies, from the perspective of founders, we were really working at nice companies, and we were having really nice careers. But
Yeah.
again, when you are in a corporate structure, there are certain times, and I think everyone would be really associating with themselves, that you feel like your pace and the pace of the company really doesn't match sometimes, and then you try another year or two or three, and then you have another conversation. But this was also one of the times where we all felt like, well, we have ambitions, we have really good ideas, but in order to execute those ideas, we just needed a different environment. So, and that different environment can be only done, if we just leave our posts and start our own business.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a big challenge. It's a big risk. Again, I mean, at that time, one of the founders, he was just getting married. The other one was having his first child, and I was having my second. So it was a lot of unknowns, a lot of uncertainty. But again, I mean, and there are also moments, when you don't do something like that, you cannot do again for the next 20 or maybe 15 years, because it's, sometimes it's now or never times in life.
Yeah.
And that was also a moment like that. And then we decided to just start everything altogether.
No, it's similar for me. Like, I had young children when I think that's a good reason, because then you have no excuse but to, but to be successful, because you've got to feed your family.
Indeed.
So it's good internal drivers. But back then, it'd be interesting for me, because the way I see the German market is like there's very large established players that traditionally have had all the assets. So back then, it must have been feeling like a big leap to go into this space as a brand new startup.
Right. Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, looking at the market and how established it is, that was also a reason to kind of worry. But also, as it's so established, it also gives you a bit of a good feeling or confidence that you can, once things are a bit too established, there are also a lot of inefficiencies. And that's what we were kind of going after, because, I mean, we also knew from our, let's say, graduate schools, our ex-companies, that sometimes things take a little too long, or things are a little too inflexible sometimes. And then in some cases, you need to convince a lot of people in an organization to create a new product. I mean, there are a lot of committees to convince and so on, and then you lose the business opportunity. And the idea back then was, and still is actually, is to overcome all of that with really super lean structures, still doing a lot of good risk management, good understanding of the business case, good understanding of these originated products and everything, but still doing it in a fast manner. Because speed, especially in Germany, is of critical importance. And I mean, when we talk to the customers, which we have never even met before a couple of years ago, they were impressed how we were able to offer them products. For example, in the middle of an energy crisis back in 22, 23, while all the other big players were not really moving. They were not able to move because there was a lot of uncertainty, of course. And as I said, you need some procedures to be completed. You need to get approvals. But in order to get approvals, I mean, everybody needs clarity. But once the clarity is there, the margins are not there. So that's a bit of that dilemma. And we were able to find nice ways and comforting ways, both for the customer and for ourselves, to go and sign contracts. So that's how we actually were able to start start kind of cracking into this whole established business setting.
Yeah, I guess in the early days you must have been met with some like reservation when you're trying to win these customers, right? What do you think the key drivers were that people decided to give you guys a shot?
On the one hand, of course, I mean, as we were an unknown player, we needed to have some people known in the market. I mean, people also, bring in their reputations and their long years of experience. When you go and talk to people, it helps a lot. And of course, I mean, our courage back then to start something in Germany was also a bit related to also the time we were spending in Germany and knowing some segments of the market. But in those areas, for example, like going to a wind farm owner or solar park owner and talking to them, like a bit of the retail, not retail, but of course it is more the market access business segment. We did not really, at least I personally did not have that much of experience. So we did team up with fantastic colleagues and partners to fulfill that gap. And those colleagues were also very well known in the market, and they had a great reputation. So the customers and the portfolios somewhat followed them.
Yeah.
And once you start and once you really touch the customer in a very nice way, and when you really take care of them, then it's the word of mouth business model.
Yeah. So how important do you think a personal reputation is
Yeah.
in Germany, especially for origination?
Yeah, I mean, that is, I think, if I would rank, that would be number one. I mean, it's even more important than the prices you give to your customers, in my opinion. Again, I mean, and I think it's not only a German thing, but it's more even maybe international. We had so many cases where our customers were just signing because it was us on the other side. It's personal reputation. They're kind of feeling like we would never leave them alone, even if it's rainy. So, and that was also, I mean, during this crisis as well. I mean, even for our first-time customers, we received a lot of great feedback from them. Well, if you were not approaching us at that time, as we were not getting any offers in the market, we would be never able to catch those prices, because you remember when the prices went crazy, everybody wanted to lock in there, but there were not even contracts available in the market. So that's really, again, that's a trust-based relationship. That's a trust-based contract. That is key, in my opinion, especially when it comes to origination. Again, when as a first or as a new entrant to the market, as you know, this business is a very credit line heavy business.
Yeah,
that was also a big obstacle in the beginning, because my understanding is, German banks they need a lot of time and explanation to understand and to support you. I was thinking that, as this business segment in Germany was way more established compared to, for example, Turkey, they were gonna, give us enough credit lines once we explained the business model properly and so on. But it also took a lot of, I mean, if not years, a lot of months. So that was also one of the big obstacles. But now we are able to generate whatever we need as credit facility. So that was also one big obstacle into this established market.
Yeah. What also would you say are like key success factors for being great at origination?
Mm-hmm. Well, in my opinion, it is a full team effort. In order to originate things properly, of course, you need to have a great understanding of what market design is. And then, of course, you need to understand exactly who needs what. And once you understand who needs what in the market design, the rest is basically just doing a bit of a composing. Basically, creating ideas and generating little products and testing it with the market. But of course, once you do that, you also need to make sure that the team behind you can basically deliver that, even if that's a new product or if it's a kind of differentiated from another product. You have to make sure that, if you promise to a customer of yours that you can come up with a non-standard product, you will be able to deliver. So it's a bit, in my opinion, you need these great origination ideas, great origination mindset, but also together with that, those originators should be very well in line and aligned with the rest of the team. And that is a very nice eclectic working model, in my opinion, because I remember, especially after 6-7 years of very much hands-on business, I was also, doing, after that, I was more moving into the lead generation or business development part as well, and that requires a lot of whining and dining. And during those conversations, there are a couple of ideas with counterparts, and if you know that your team can deliver this, you can really create very nice deals even over those very informal conversations, because you know that your originators will be creating that product. They will have this key account relationship, and then they will also internally align these processes. This is actually the key, in my opinion. But again, I think everyone over here also knows that even the best origination idea will not survive more than a year or maybe 18 months. It will be either copied, it will be either, it will be easy for others to understand and to enter into the same product. that's why we all know that, we always have to recycle our ideas and reinvent all the time. This is also one aspect, because you cannot just find something and rely to that for 4 or 5 years. And this is, I think, one of the key fundamental differences of power markets compared to many other businesses.
Yeah, like you said, the market just is ever changing.
Exactly, ever changing. And that's actually one of the most interesting things about power market. I mean, I'm now in power trading business for the last 17, 18 years. And every single day when I start my PC, I'm kind of excited. Or maybe even every single day when I wake up, okay, I'm like, well, what is going to happen today, which is new? And that always happens. And you never get bored in this business. And because, it's very much related to weather, it's very much related to whole economy and everything. And again, every day you have so many different prices, different quarterly prices, different market prices. You always find a bit of joy in something new happening. And that is really, I think that was making me super passionate about this business.
Yeah, for sure.
You never get bored.
That's why I love doing this podcast as well, speaking to people like yourself. This podcast is brought to you today by Nimble Alpha, who provides systematic market insights and are trusted daily by some of the highest performing power and gas traders at tier one energy trading houses. Nimble Alpha delivers clear, data-driven signals across TTF, MBP, EUAs, German Power, Brent, and Henry Hub. They allow you to anticipate short-term trends, time executions, so you can stay ahead of volatility. So whether you trade spec, handle client flow, or manage risk, Nimble Alpha allows you to make sharper decisions with full transparency. In today's quant-driven markets, it's the perfect overlay of your fundamental research. So book your free trial today in the link below and get 10% off your first subscription. Stay nimble. Something you touched on there, which I find interesting. Obviously, in order to make a product, in order to be innovative and make promises to customers, you need to have a great team. That originator needs to have a great team behind you. So could you just give me an idea of like what the team looks like?
Sure.
Like what types of people you need, and we can go into that. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, sure, happily. I mean, currently we are a team of 97, 98 people.
Yeah.
And I'm super happy to say that the average age of this 97, 8 is around 30.5, 30.6 maybe. Okay. And it's a lot of course, sharp minds, fresh minds. And when you look at the composition, I would say we are maybe 15, 20%, economists slash business people, and maybe another 55 engineers from different fields. And then the remaining is software developers, data scientists, and meteorologists, for example. So that is actually the combination of the team. And that, of course, I mean, from the finance and accounting, that I all put them into the business part. So that is actually a bit of the composition. But again, when it comes to finding people, hiring people, we are also very picky on one topic. That is actually I call it sometimes factor X, basically the harmony with the existing team. We're not really so much into, going and hiring those people who can make a lot of money, but then makes things a little bit problematic inside. We're not that happy with that kind of profiles. That's why we are very picky on finding right type of matches to the team. Okay, well, I mean, maybe we're losing on a couple of million euros on that, can be, but we are here for long run, and that is actually needed for a long run happy game, because we like what we're doing, and for that game to be really joyful for everyone, we are really prioritizing the harmony among people. Yeah. And also another thing about people is actually, if there's one common thing among all of us, is we're all very hungry to achieve things, to be successful, and to really make an impact in what we're doing. And I think that is also very easy to say, but I think very difficult to get and maintain. And that is also one area which we would like to keep things the same way. Because once the number grows, it becomes also a bit difficult to transmit this part of the culture. But this is, of course, for us, one of the most important things. And again, when you look at the founders and the first, let's say, the first believers in Pure, that's very much how we have been able to apply and execute that culture. And we are trying to transfer that to all the newcomers. But as we have started everything from very scratch, maybe a bit on that story, we actually did something called bootstrapping without really knowing the meaning of it. So we have actually started with our own family and friends round, and then business grew. So we did not actually do any M&A so far. We don't have any private equity involvement or any other strategic party involvement, which made everything a bit too difficult in my opinion. Now understanding how the others were doing and are doing. Yeah. But again, as we were fortunate to become what we are today, it also gives a lot of flexibility and freedom. And that flexibility and freedom, I think, will take us further in a bit further / faster in the next couple of years, because we still allow very lean decision-making structures, and we still allow our speed. And that is a bit the culture also in the team and the whole company.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and quite rare nowadays that you're still 100% founder owned, and you obviously still very active in the business. It's called founder mode now, where you can be like hardcore and focused on speed and innovation.
Indeed. I mean, that is very interesting, because in the beginning, as we had all something like 10 years of careers in the beginning, starting this, we were a little too busy to make this fly. So during that time, we did not have time, to be very frank. We did not have time to go into this startup circles looking for fundraising, this and that, because we had the idea. We thought that we could go and execute fast, and we just started with whatever the resources available back then. And then once business started to grow, then you had a lot of other topics to be busy with. And then we did that. So we never had really a proper time to sit together even with the founders and, explore opportunities out there. But I still kind of prefer this, because we have full coverage of what had been done in the company, and we were involved in every single point. And that, again, I mean, every single decision belongs to us and the team. That is really very important to me. And of course, I mean, we had maybe silly decisions, we had bad decisions as well, and we all own them. This is fine, but I think we had more better decisions. So in the end, that is also a very important thing, in my opinion, because once you start pretending that, oh, this is a great company, we have such great business ideas and models, this and that, and then you oversell the company, that is so much pressurizing, in my opinion, to deliver on something which you have oversold. We never wanted that to happen. And that's why we even, until we really created a good track record, we did not even talk to anyone about these matters. Of course, the last couple of years, as you also know, a lot of funds and private equity and so on are interested in our power markets, right? And we started also, talking to some of them. But again, they're also quite surprised. I mean, so how come you did not do anything like this before and all that? But again, I mean, this is how it was happening, and we are a bit of a rare, let's say, rare type of an animal in the market in that regard. Because, as you said, I mean, whoever is doing really good either was sold to a fund or even to an oil and gas company, which I always find, I mean, of course, nice and good and everything for the founders and maybe also those companies buying. But in my opinion, if you are out there saying that you are there for renewable business, why do you do that in the end? I mean, that's how I feel about that. And that's what we, I mean, for example, we were also receiving some requests for, participation from those guys. But we said, well, at this moment, this is not what we're going to do.
Yeah, no, No, it's like I say, it's a bit of a USP for the business. What would you also say are USPs, unique selling points about Pure? Like obviously you've got 3 gigs, like you said, in Germany, which is
Yeah.
amazing, really impressive. But what else would you say are the USPs that help drive this business and
Yeah.
culture?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Besides the team and culture, I think in terms of our operating model, we're also a little different. So what we are doing is, I mean, we're not a, let's say, 100% software-based or software-powered trading company. Of course, we use very powerful software, this and that, but we are still on the fundamental side of things. Basically, we follow the markets day and night. We do act, we transact whenever we see that it is better. For example, if a human interruption is better to those algos and so on, we are still doing it a bit on the hybrid mode, in my opinion. But again, this is also a little different compared to just gathering portfolios, just leaving everything to automated systems and so on. And what we also do a bit differently is we're not only doing, aggregation of renewables, but with that, we have business leads on, for example, renewable PPAs, corporate PPA. We actually first buy the PPAs from especially post-feed-in tariff plants. We have a huge portfolio of those assets. And with that, then we go and talk to, German small, medium enterprises, which is actually not that small in Germany. It's a big part of the economy. And we understand that they're really underserved compared to the corporates. So we go and sometimes hedge these PPAs directly with those off-takers. And then sometimes, in some cases, we also have full supply contracts to the end users, which is basically complementing the offering. Again, we are very active in GO business. We buy and sell those generation of origin certificates. But I think what we're trying to do, or what we're trying to become, is a super asset light new generation utility. We don't own any assets, at least, I mean, until this year. I will tell you a bit more on our battery ideas. But until this year, we were not owning a single asset. But again, we were not only touching to one part of the equation, we were covering quite a wide area of power operations or power origination, starting from the very light version of balancing of portfolios, then to PPAs, and then from those PPAs to PSAs, as we call it, power sales agreements. And with those PSAs and GOs around it, we are offering a full supply to some end users. So this is actually a full-fledged one-stop shop approach. So, I mean, we know that there are some companies who only do, for example, balancing or only some PPAs, but they're not really combining these elements, which is, of course, a big effort. And that's why we also have such a high number of colleagues actually in our team. But in our opinion, it is really good if you can supply all these products at one go to your customers, and then they have just one counterpart to deal with everything. So this is actually more the aim. And of course, one big element or big addition to this whole operating model is the battery optimization. We have an internal product or tool called Power Sponge that is actually our cross-market battery optimization tool. We already have customers which we are basically doing their optimization. And now, understanding better and better that market, we will be able to become one of the interesting key players in battery optimization space, because we think that combining this renewable portfolio management on a 24/7 basis with battery optimization is going to be one of the key synergy areas. And I don't think that many of those battery optimizers have that opportunity because they're only focusing on battery optimization. We think that there are certain synergies between renewable energy optimization and battery optimization. And we're aiming to have a 1,000 megawatt hour portfolio by the end of 27, which we would be operating on behalf of others. And of course, I mean, if you're so much into the market and so if you're observing what is happening on battery space, I mean, it also becomes very attractive to go and invest into that space. That's why we were acquiring a project of 60 megawatt hour of a standalone battery, That would be our first investment, and that we are expecting to be completed by the first quarter of 27. And we are also now looking into some other ways of originating further investments, co-investments in that space. And in that regard, we have a 3-people team who are basically focusing on battery due diligence and so on, because there are so many projects in the market at the moment. And not so many of them are really, I would say, doable. But we are looking to increase our presence in battery asset ownership as well.
Yeah, no, it makes sense because obviously the battery market in Germany is extremely interesting for many. Curious, like you obviously hadn't owned assets, like you said, up until now, and you're choosing to own battery projects and assets. So what is it that's driven you to make that decision as a business?
Yeah, well, first thing is, of course, as I said, it has a great match with our core business. So at 24/7 renewable optimization matches perfectly with battery. So we can create additional revenues in our understanding compared to those who do not have this combination. So that's one. And second, of course, again, I mean, if you look at financial returns of potential battery project, it's also outstanding. I mean, in terms of different, if you compare it with different asset classes in Germany, this is really very shiny. Again, also another reason was because, I mean, we saw this as well, like 3 years ago, that it will be very interesting, but then the banks were also a bit too distant to finance these projects, or they were asking for really high equity and so on. But now more and more they understand it better, and they're also some of them are very supportive to finance these projects. So making the financing also a bit more accessible, or financing being a bit more accessible, was also a key reason to decide on this.
Okay. You say the plan is to own batteries yourself, but would you also optimize, obviously, customers' batteries as well?
That's for sure. Yeah.
Are you optimizing batteries right now, or is this just something you're launching recently?
We are doing it already since more than a year in Germany, but I think our primary focus will be Germany for the next a good 1-2 years, I would say. But again, maybe as of 27 or so, we might also expand that. But if another opportunity arises, for example, in some established market which we can add value, we can of course set it up very quickly, because that's also the benefit of having an own in-house software in this. And that's maybe also another point when it comes to the differentiating part, or at Pure. You know, what we can do is, when we are looking at international expansion and so on, we are also very flexible. I mean, if a customer of ours, for example, have a portfolio of 200-300 megawatts of assets in some other European country, for example, which we know or which we are registered at the exchange and so on, we can already take over their operation in 3 to 4 months. And that is, in my opinion, still a very fast operation. And that is also what we're now looking into with some of our key clients. We are now looking into extending those partnerships in some other markets, actually.
Okay. So you're already active in other countries other than Germany.
Yeah, right? Exactly. We are already active. I mean, of course, we're doing, I mean, when it comes to financial trading, we are doing a lot of transactions on EX in different countries. That's the easy part. But when it comes to physical balancing and trading, we are active already in the Netherlands. We also have we have assets in Estonia, for example, which is a bit of an exotic market in Europe, in my opinion, but a very nice market and promising. And also now we are setting up our activities for Poland. So this is actually the current landscape. And again, I mean, besides Turkey, all of that. And now we have an expansion plan to further geographies. I mean, we think that the setting up everything, starting in Europe is rather, I would say, not super mainstream, but mainstream. And you can really do it in a swift way. But also, we are looking into countries like Japan and the US, Texas ERCOT market as well. And in Japan, very recently, we have acquired a company who is holding retail licenses and trading licenses. And we have very recently finished that. And we're looking forward start trading activities in Q4, physical trading activities in Japan in Q4
Physical.
this year. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know, I think you've just touched on some of the hottest markets there. So Eastern Europe is, very interesting. There's some massively growing economies in Eastern Europe. It's really exciting what's going on there. And then obviously you touched on Japan as well, which I think I believe is the hottest market probably in the world right now, because there's just so much interest. The market's obviously in its infancy and liberalizing. It'd be interesting to just get your first reaction to being physical in Eastern Europe and looking at being physical in Japan compared to what you know already. So Germany, like, is there been any big surprises, big differences for you entering those markets?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we call it as a bit of time arbitrage. I mean, in terms of the market maturity levels between the countries. I mean, in my opinion, for example, if you compare the Turkish market with German market, where I think Turkey is still like 5-7 years behind the German market. Yeah. But when you compare the Japanese market with German market, I think it's still maybe 10-12 years behind. So it's really and the good thing is, of course, I mean, sometimes it can be so, let's say, time consuming or boring to be in that development phase of the markets, because you can wait for forever and then you can give up from that market and then things can start growing. But that's all about how much patience and how much resources you should allocate to all these different markets. And absolutely, I mean, when you look at their market design, there are really big differences. But the good thing, again, is if you go and tell them that these were also the phases in other markets, and this is how they were tackling in a nice or bad way, and that this particular thing could be a solution for that X market, and some of the regulators or some of the decision makers listen to you, and they want to, involve you into those discussions, and that can make things faster. But in some other markets, they just have their own pace. So that is the thing you need to really be aware of. And I think we have done our, let's say, master's program in that, when we were very much involved in the regulatory development phase of Turkish market, so that enough amount of patience we had been consuming or acquiring in a way. Yeah, and then now we're using that experience in markets. I mean, it's not to say that in Europe or in Germany everything is just set perfectly. It's definitely not. It's a lot of zigzag as well here, but also at least the direction of the markets to a certain degree is set, and whatever happens, you can always have that as an anchor. So that you can also see that, well, even if there is a bit of a zig, there will be another zag to correct that move. So that is what you need. That's a bit of the approach. Yeah. But in some other markets, those zigzags are a bit too big, so that you feel like, well, maybe we're just wasting time there.
Yeah. Be interested, like, what about Estonia? What was it that attracted you to enter that market?
Yeah, in Estonia,
it's not one that I hear every day.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was also, I mean, a very good customer of ours in Germany. They own a wind park there, quite a sizable park, and they were asking for our support to also be there with them and to optimize this, and that's how it started. But also, after after their separation from the Russian grid in terms of frequency and all that, now that market is also becoming a very interesting market for balancing, and even, I would say, a bit of arbitrage trading for batteries as well. And now we are also considering maybe to invest in a battery together with our partners there. In our way of operating and in our way of business doing, we really value the partnerships, and those partnerships are there for us. I mean, we are on the long end of, or the long, we like the long-term partnerships with companies and with our friends. And whenever one side needs help, support, the other part is there for them. That's actually how we really appreciate. For example, we also have a lot of partners in trading. I mean, I call it even in some cases competition, not really competition or cooperation, but it's really something in between. We offer them some products, they share those products with us, and then we have profit sharing agreements with our normal competitors, let's say. But the good thing about these things are, that creates, let's say, a reason to meet every quarter. That's good because we're kind of like-minded people when it comes to these partnerships, and it's always good to be in touch with them, to learn from each other, also to assess each other's performance every month by seeing the results. So that's really the way we like, and that was also one of the reasons how we started actually Estonian business.
No, just touching on that, I find that really fascinating. How you're willing to collaborate with competitors and help them access a market that they couldn't access without you guys, and doing like that kind of deal. I think that's really interesting, and I think that's quite innovative. I personally haven't really come across that too much. So yeah, like what are the main benefits for you guys to do that?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I think the most important part is to have these partnerships, collaborations as benchmarking points to our own performance. That's, I think, I think also for the other sides that's the case. And again, I mean, with some of those guys, once we start and, see each other's performance and the way of doing business, we also start other businesses. And that I find really valuable because it's such a huge market. It's such a growing market. And why to really compete to the cent instead of, I mean, competition is great. I mean, don't get me wrong, but there can be also areas which we can cooperate further. And that is what we are really looking for, because there might be some cases that we don't know better than them. And there might be cases that we know a bit better than them. So that it's also good to share this knowledge. I mean, I also understand from a trader's perspective, okay, well, why do you share your knowledge if you can make much more money out of it? But that's, in my opinion, that's a bit short-sighted.
Yeah. No, so I think like a common trend I'm getting from you guys is obviously the relationship building. Like you said, you go into a market because a customer wants help, and you want to build long-term relationships. You want to build relationships with counterparties.
Yeah, we actually, Patrick, we see this as I mean, of course, it's a business. It's of course not a charity, but we also see this as an ecosystem. Like we are in an ecosystem which we are happy being in. That's the thing. Especially if you don't have any other pressure from your shareholders and so on, KPIs, this and that. Of course, we have our own internal systems here, but we are really enjoying what we are doing. And in order to make that joy longer term, you need like-minded people, and those like-minded people are out there. And I mean, personally, I've been going to eWorlds for the last, I don't know, 14 years or 15 maybe, and it's going there and seeing all these people. People change companies and so on, but the reputation follows. That is, in my opinion, the most important thing. And going and sitting, discussing a business idea, even if we share a bit of our profit and so on, is not a biggie. I think the most important is to have that personal touch and to keep it for long term.
Yeah, no, I love that mindset. Awesome. So just something obviously that you guys are doing, and you touched on it earlier, that the hybrid approach, which I find interesting. Obviously, you've got manual traders, and you've got really strong data scientists and algorithmic trading operation. So how important do you think that is in today's world, especially going into batteries, that you've got, both areas at a very strong level?
Yeah. Well, in the past and even now, I was always a big believer in pattern recognition. And when you say it as pattern recognition, it sounds even better. But in the end, in the old days, we were calling it as, gut feeling. I mean, and now, of course, that gut feeling powered by machines, became pattern recognition. That's it. And that's how I see it. But from that approach, I mean, we see the value of automated and algorithmic trading, and we use it. I mean, I think 95% of our transactions, I would say, to a certain degree, is generated by this. But again, it's maybe that last 5 to 10% which makes the big difference, because those algos, they're in the field, they do all these little fights between each other. But then if there is a human who is supervising this and understanding the right moment and executing that another, 50 or 100 megawatts of transaction, that makes a difference. And this still is the case. And I think when I look at the past P&L performances and so on, I think it's predominantly the discretionary, in my opinion. I mean, of course, for balancing, you cannot use people, right? Just to do a repetitive task all the time. You can, of course, use human or traders or data scientists to improve the performance. And that's what we, of course, continue to do. But when it comes to execution, that's a different thing. But when it comes to, for example, in Germany, you have those very interesting periods of weather events, like Dunkelflaute or some other heat periods or some the extra windy or solar sunny days. Then you have to have someone to keep an eye on the opportunities to help the grid and to support the system and to also create revenues for the company. And that's actually our approach. I mean, now we are doing probably more than 42, maybe 45, maybe thousands of transactions every day. And for that number, you cannot really, of course, have everything done by human. But I still believe in the gut feeling of a human being more than a machine. I mean, that might sound old school, but the results still show that it's the right path. I mean, to have a good combo of those two.
Yeah. Like you say, those algos, from my experience, talking to other people who have a very good hybrid system, is they're catching the daily repetitive opportunity, but they're not normally like big opportunities. They're just nice, steady opportunities. And then having a trader or someone who's more now like a surveillance officer or supervisor, whatever you may call it, just watching what's going on in the market. And then, like we say, there could be a weather event, or there could be something that algo is not going to be able to take full advantage of. And then having that trader with the conviction and the experience to make a trade and catch the majority of the profit that day.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, we had been observing so many days like that. I mean, and also, the good thing is that once you're operating in different countries and once you're understanding the different price fundamentals, you can also take those experiences to different intraday markets. But it is really most important to have this 24/7 human-powered, let's say, system in place. And for that, again, I mean, you need to have passionate people who is sitting in front of the screens. And that's what I'm really grateful and very happy about my team. They are there to catch those opportunities. And we, of course, as we are a very, let's say, lean organization, we're always informed what is happening. And we all, I mean, when I mean we, I'm talking about the entire organization, and we all celebrate and be happy together.
Yeah. So those traders, are they based in which offices? Which offices do you have? Where are those traders based?
Sure. I mean, currently we have with Japan, maybe in next weeks, we will have 5 locations. We have actually now I'm in Monheim office. This is a place between Düsseldorf and Köln. We also have our other office in Düsseldorf. And then we have a big operational center and a big office, our very founding office in Istanbul, and then another one in Abu Dhabi and in Japan now. So this is actually the setup. And the 24/7 shifts take place in our Istanbul office. And we really have a very good access to top schools, top universities in Istanbul. As you know, it's a young population, and also young / let's say very eager to learn and to really achieve things type of population compared to some other places in Europe that people are a little bit too relaxed, to be frank on that. That is actually the drive you need to get to success. I call it actually sometimes it might be in the next or near future, if we can really do the right steps, it might be the second Aarhus of German power market.
No, to be fair, I was just about to say I think like there's a really good hub in Turkish power traders. I speak to a lot of them and they're very good. I'm noticing newer markets pop up. So I'm finding some very good power traders in Eastern Europe as well. I think there's just something about these emerging countries, emerging economies, that especially for intraday where you're doing 24/7, they're just very hungry. They're very hardworking. They've got that mentality where, perhaps, it's harder when everything's always so comfortable in your country. It's a bit harder to want to work those shifts, but I'm really impressed with some of the talents that I see in these markets, and it's not something that everyone's thinking about.
Totally. I mean, back at Statkraft, we also had those ideas. We were thinking that maybe we could just, have Turkey or Istanbul as one of the intraday spots. Or again, I mean, I also know back in the day, Danske also had an office and they also had similar ideas. But again, I mean, it just didn't really fly for different reasons. But now we were able to do this, and we are very happy to keep it there and to make that place a very nice working environment for our colleagues. And again, I mean, this is, as I said, this is our founding office, and I'm always happy to be in Istanbul. I would say even a little bit more happy compared to other places when I'm in Istanbul, and I like the atmosphere in our office. And again, I mean, don't forget, Patrick, it's actually Istanbul is one of the significant cities in the entire world, and it hosts Grand Bazaar, where the traders were trading a lot of different products since I would say hundreds of years, and that of course reflects a bit, and that reflects into the culture and DNA, in my opinion. So I really think that there's a good breed of traders out there.
Yeah, and for you then, a question I always like to ask is like, what
Sure.
in your opinion makes a great intraday power trader or power trader in general? Is there any traits you look for, and you just consistently see these traits lead to being a good performer?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, in general, like being a critical thinker is, I mean, not only for trading, but also for many other tasks is really key of importance. So when you see a price popping up, you need to really have a good view of why is this happening. And for that, you need to be really good at critical thinking, asking a lot of right type of questions. Plus, I think, as I said, capabilities around pattern recognition, understanding what is happening and expecting what to happen next in a similar scenario. Of course, I mean, that's what you do with computers and so on in many cases, but in some other cases, just not following the flow, but maybe even sometimes going against that can be something really important. Again, the approach to risk taking is, of course, very important. And I would say, in terms of intellectual capacity, or like in a way, brain power is extremely important. But again, I mean, in order to fit in and also to kind of share with the others in the team and so on, you also have a bit of the EQ skills, so that you really have a good team spirit. That's really key of importance, in my opinion. And again, I mean, if you are, let's say, leading an intraday team and showing how things are done, you also lead by example, in my opinion. It's really important to just not, I mean, we all know that shifts are difficult. Shifts are really heavy sometimes, and you're really devastated the next day. So if you just tell the team, to do this and that, and then you don't really, share the pain, that's not a good thing. And also, again, it's again the same thing among the team players, just to really carry on and basically help each other. That's really an important aspect, in my opinion. It's a team game. It's never a
team sport intraday.
Exactly. It's not a one-man show. It is, of course, everyone has different contributions to team, but in the end, it's a team game, and that team should be operating perfectly, in my opinion.
So leaders should lead from the front, be active in the market.
Exactly. And also going and meeting sometimes, in some cases, also being very close to originators to understand what kind of other products and ideas can be executed. That's also key of importance. So it's a lot of collaboration, contribution feeling, in my opinion. And again, I think you have to be extremely good and smart in what you're doing, because there's a lot of analytics happening out there.
Yeah. And I guess from the traders that you have, like, collaboration is key, but are you also fostering that collaboration with the data science team? Like, so are these guys talking every day, sharing ideas, observing patterns?
Totally. And I mean, this is extremely important, because I mean, on a day-to-day basis, an intraday trader, I think they typically do not have so much time in, maybe, of course, they have time in observing things, taking notes, and maybe, keeping an eye on what to deep dive later. But that deep dive part it should be shared to data science team, and then they should be always in a very good sync to understand and analyze to help each other. That's how I see it. I mean, I don't see it as a kind of a competitive environment. Okay, this is how much P&L we do per megawatt hour. This is how much we do on the other side. That's not a good thing in my opinion. But of course, I mean, having different type of books, different type of P&L targets can be okay. It also gives a lot of, let's say, initiative taking, but the information should always be shared. It shouldn't be hid from each other and anything like that. So that's really important to be in sync.
Yeah. And just on the differences for you guys, obviously have a lot of assets under management, your asset trading, but also your financial trading, spec trading as well. Like, what are the key differences for you there between the two?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is, for those assets and balancing and PPAs, of course, you are responsible to the client in the first place. So this is actually their asset. You have to do your best to make it more profitable, or to at least sustain their profits, maintain their profits. And then when it comes to spec trading, it's of course your own internal game in the company, in my opinion. Of course, different books, different structures, and different mandates in terms of who can do what, but again, it's within the company. So that's the first difference. And then when it comes to approach, of course, short-term trading on balancing, asset management, portfolio management, everything is way more short-term, and then you really have to deliver under time pressure. But again, on the other side, it's either if you're a fundamental position taker, it is your own fundamental judgment, and then your insights from your colleagues, or also the external reports you're reading, you're on your own in a way as a trader. So that is also, I think, on the spec side, one difference is, as I said, I mean, the intraday game, in my opinion, is a bit more of a team game, and on the spec side, it's more of an individual game, and that managing that stress is sometimes a little too heavy, especially when things go to the wrong direction. I mean, I also had my own experiences, and I also learned from some of those big lessons. And you have to be a different character to carry on when things really go south. And you can, of course, sometimes you are so much in love with your position, and you think that all the market is wrong, but you are right. But well, basically, it just doesn't work that way. And again, if you have to cut it, you have to cut it. And cutting it is also, I mean, it's a bit different, very different psychology compared to short-term or asset-backed trading. But again, I mean, volatility these days compared to the past is really crazy, in my opinion. I mean, of course, now it's normalizing a little bit, but I remember when the Fukushima event happened, and when Mrs. Merkel announced a moratorium on nuclear. I was at the trading floor, and that was one of the most liquid days until then. And I remember the cal price was just moving. I think it was not the next year, but the year after or so, was just moving by 2-3 euros, and that was a big event. And we have now seen movements of 50, 60, maybe even 100 euros a day. And now the new normal is really, I mean, again, now we're maybe down to 5, 6 euros a day and so on in a crazy day. But it has changed as well. So adapting to this volatility and understanding what kind of effects that can create. We've seen also we have been observing and kind of living it as well, that this whole margin call craziness during that time when the prices were going all the way up to 1,000 euros. It had never happened before, right? And now we also, again, to run that, to manage that, to handle that, you need a bit strong psychology. And that is, I guess, one key factor to run that volatility.
Yeah. So when you're looking at like someone who wants to be a spec trader, is that the key thing you're looking for?
For sure. I mean, a risk appetite, the strong psychology in how that person would react in extreme scenarios.
Yeah. Is there anything that if they haven't done it before, how do you actually? That's a big question. I get it all the time. Asset traders say, "I want to be a spec trader. How do I make that transition?" And I guess it's sometimes hard for them to show.
It is very hard, but of course, I mean, I think if someone starts already as an asset trader, because I guess another version of that question is, okay, well, I'm interested in power trading. Where do I start? How do I start? Because that's also a question which I receive all the time. But from an asset trading perspective, you already demonstrate how resilient and how strong you are in your track record and in your also views, in your conversations, in your discussions, in your cooperation with your colleagues. And then it can be, in my opinion, from the leadership side, it can be really seen if that person has that fabric. But again, I mean, there's no secret. In my opinion, there's no secret recipe. It's all about, understanding the market moves, price drivers, fundamentals. I'm still not so much on the technical trading side of things when it comes to futures. Oh, I know how big it became over the last years. But again, I mean, our business is predominantly, I mean, even on the spec side, we do hedges, right? I mean, we have a big portfolio of assets, and for the years ahead, we predominantly use futures for hedging purposes. So what that means is basically we have to be betting on the delivery, not really the intra-year or intra-month price moves. Sometimes that is also a bit different with TTF becoming a hot product. It also affected power prices in Europe, and you see how hedge fund powered trade moves are there. So that is also one thing to differentiate. I mean, of course, if you just want to have someone who just benefits from everything in that market, that's a different choice. But if you need someone who does forward trading or like even sometimes spec trading for the portfolio as well, that's of course a bit of a different fabric. In a way, it is, in my opinion, resilience and psychology on how to react and how to keep the positions or kill the positions.
Yeah, you touched on like the market obviously change, and I guess the new entrants that we've seen post 22, a lot of hedge funds, etc. So what's your view on the market today?
Yeah, I think today it's a little bit, in my opinion, overpopulated. I mean, it's a good thing in a way. I mean, that power markets being interesting for many, of course. But again, I mean, if you're coming to this market to have super profits and changing the whole dynamics around the market, it's not a good thing in the long run. Because we've seen, like, I mean, our management or even, traders, we all received calls around, okay, well, there's this new hedge fund setting this up, okay, with crazy salaries and so on. Would you consider, and so on. And that was, of course, I mean, as we all know, the market and I mean, this was also very similar in, I think, 2009-10, that period. There were a lot of banks in the game. And I remember our reaction back in the day, like whenever there is a bank on the other side of the deal, we were always doubling it, for example, because you feel like, there is a fundamental mismatch in understanding it. Of course, I mean, I think that would be the same if we would be doing FX transactions. So I guess it's very similar. So in my opinion, this is currently a bit overpopulated, and that overpopulation also creates a lot of distortions in the market in terms of pace, in terms of market reaction, in terms of moves in the price. But I think it's also kind of slowing down a bit. Like they're seeing very quickly that it's not as fancy as some other commodities. And as long as things are stable in terms of geopolitics and so on, it's more the weather and it's more the real energy demand which kind of shapes the price, like in the old days. So they're getting bored, I guess. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it's definitely been an interesting market. Watching the competition and the different players that are entering, because it's not just the hedge funds. I think, we've seen some very sophisticated quantitative firms enter the market as well. But yeah, it has distorted price. I think salaries have gone a bit wild because of these new entrants. But I always look at it from like, well, what's the long-term opinion on this market? Like, are they here for catching some volatility, or are they here because they've got a 5-year, 10-year plan? And obviously, like, you guys are lifers. You're going to be here tomorrow. You're going to be here in 5 years. You're going to be here in 10 years. So when candidates are talking to me about opportunities, just looking at a big salary, that you've got more pressure and you don't have time. And if the market's not got the opportunities for you, then you're looking over your shoulder quarter by quarter. Whereas guys with, opportunities with companies that are power traders and always have been, always will be, you've got that understanding and more of a career longer term. So it depends what people are valuing at the moment. I think that's the big differences for me.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's more of a personal approach, and seeing what do you really benefit the most from. Actually, if you're long-term oriented, I think you would rather consider growing in your own organization, or I mean also another organization which is kind of carrying a similar culture and so on, or similar understanding of the market. But if you have these jumps a little too often, that's also not good for your personal career reputation, in my opinion, as a trader.
Yeah, for sure. But look, I think we've covered a lot there, Servet, and I really do appreciate your time. It's super impressive. What a journey that your energy have been on and continue to be on. Obviously, really exciting times as you enter new markets and new opportunities in Eastern Europe, in Japan, which I didn't know, and obviously the battery opportunity. So you're in all the right places. So I'm very excited to watch the growth journey in the next few years.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Patrick. I mean, as I said, we are really enjoying the play, and we are, as long as that joy is there, I think we'll continue our journey. And yeah, we're really looking forward to the near future and beyond. Thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. And I think there's lots of insight shared along the way. So yeah, thanks a lot again.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.